Hi, everyone. My name is Oliviana. I'm head of community at EscherCloud. We're bringing you today the CASSINI Hackathon Netherlands Roundtable. We have some great panelists with us tonight who are in the startup space to share their experiences starting their own companies. So we're really looking forward to sharing more about that today. So to get started, just a quick introduction of EscherCloud. We are on a mission to accelerate green AI to protect our planet's future by building the most sustainable, high-performance compute. So there's a lot of challenges right now with AI that are putting more harm on our environment. And with the applications AI can actually do on climate-related challenges, we see that we want to not be counterproductive to solving these challenges. So at EscherCloud, we're combining cutting-edge data center and construction industry solutions to create powerful, secure, and sustainable compute, which is why we are involved in the CASSINI Hackathon. So for those of you who don't know about the CASSINI Hackathon yet, the European Commission has launched the Competitive Space Startups for Innovation Initiative in 2021 as part of a broad effort to support space entrepreneurship for a digital and sustainable Europe. So they're combining their Copernicus, Galileo, and Genos projects that are capturing data from space from their satellites up there and also navigational data and combining it with the CASSINI Hackathon. So this year's CASSINI Hackathon is on digitizing green spaces. It's over the weekend of June 18th. The first hackathon will challenge hackers to use geospatial information from Copernicus and its other services on positioning technologies from Galileo and Genos to develop innovative solutions that look to digitize our green spaces. So some of those challenges that we will be solving over the hackathon weekend are staying fit and healthy, discovering your city, and protecting our rural spaces. So with me today, we have 4 lovely panelists. We have Camiel from Birds.ai, Aref from both Startup Bootcamp and his own startup, Mithra, Martin from Caeli, and Vladimir from Natuition. So I will stop sharing my slides for a quick second so you can actually meet the panelists. So we have our lovely panelists with us today. Let's remove my spotlight so we can see everyone. Okay, great. Hi, guys. So happy to have you guys with us today. So I'll introduce each of you guys, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing with your startup. So to start, Camiel, you are our first panelist. You're the founder and CEO of Birds.ai, as well as investment manager at Delft Enterprise. Camiel has also a master's degree in artificial intelligence from the University of Amsterdam, where he has published several scientific papers and has worked for the National Aerospace Laboratory prior to his adventure as an entrepreneur. So, Camiel, tell us a little bit more about your work at Birds.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for this lovely introduction, Oliviana. So at Birds.ai, we give managers of industrial assets insights about their assets. We do this by converting images in meaningful figures and numbers. For instance, for solar, the owner has to make sure that all his panels are functioning to optimize the energy output. To do that, he has to find the panels that are broken. Inspecting all these panels on foot can take multiple days up to a week. And they request our help to solve this problem. So what we did is we asked a drone operator to collect visual and thermal data, as you can see on the right in this video. And these images were fed into an AI engine that we tuned to find the position of each broken panel. So in this case, on the right, you see that panels are being detected and classified whether they're broken or not. And then finally, we provide an overview of the broken panels, and that you can see on the left side. So now the owner has a direct shortcut of the broken panels. So yeah, So at Birds.ai, we convert images into these meaningful figures and numbers, and we do that in these 3 simple steps, right? So we collect the input images or videos, we tune a suitable AI engine, and we visualize the output in a meaningful overview. The beauty of our technology is that it can be applied on many different problems. Our team has worked with some of the biggest customers in the market. For example, with Aperam to prevent downtime in their steel production lines, with Deloitte to track hockey players for better tactics, and with EDF to proactively maintain power lines. For these customers, our technology creates a data-driven workflow for cost savings and improved safety. So that's a little bit more about what we do.
Thanks so much, Camiel. Okay, great. So I'll introduce our next panelist, which is Martin. So Martin has over 28 years of experience in logistics, business development, and innovation. He co-founded Caeli, an AI company making satellite data accessible, understandable, and visible for air quality and climate insights. So Martin, tell us a little bit more about your startup.
Yes, thank you very much, Oliviana, for having me here and tell about Caeli. Yeah, like you said, we co-founded Caeli 3 years ago together with 2 partners. What we do is we make satellite data available, accessible, and visible. And that's what we do for corporates and for governments. So what we do is we collect a lot of data. We combine this with our algorithm. So what we do is we build an algorithm to, how we call it, look through the clouds, because satellites cannot look through the clouds. That's where we build an algorithm on. And the second thing is what we did is we built an algorithm to higher the resolution. The pixels of a satellite where we collect satellite data from are pixels of 7 by 5 kilometer, and we higher the resolution up to 100 by 100 meter. And this is really useful for making policy decisions for corporates about policy decisions about methane leaks, for example, or governments where they want to make a decision about the nitrogen or the air quality, air quality in their city, and in the Netherlands and Belgium, specifically about the nitrogen oxide and the ammonia. And what we build a product where they can monitor this in a dashboard and see and put in some alerts, so they can they are able to see whether their policy decisions have made effect or not. That's what we do for. That's where we started 3 years ago. We collect now satellite data from 7 satellites, and we're building up this database lake, and we build the infrastructure where we can make this accessible and understandable for governments.
Great. Thanks so much, Martin. Sounds really interesting.
You're welcome.
Okay, so going on to the next panelist to introduce, we have Vladimir. He's the co-founder and CTO of Natuition, a French-based startup making the world's first ecological weed killer robot for sport pitches. Natuition is one of the 10 startups that will also be showcasing at EscherCloud AI Lab when we open this fall. So Vladimir, I'll let you introduce more about your startup. Let me just grab that slide for you.
Yeah, thanks, Oliviana. Glad to be here. Thank you very much for an invitation. So yes, we are a French-based startup, but soon moving to Amsterdam for a showcase, and we're very happy with it. We, with my co-founder, since long time, we're dreaming to solve at least one ecological problem using an artificial intelligence. And we finally found one, and we just went out of the house and saw all this grass with weeds, and we say, well, what is the solution today for against these weeds? And there were 2 of them. First was the chemicals, and then the second one was just manually get them out. So say, come on, in 2021, we supposed to have something that will do it automatically and ecologically. So that's how we had this idea of the robot, which will look on the grass, detect and extract in a very ecological way the weeds. So as you see on the slide, we are very simple in our approach with 3 steps. We are using a camera which is oriented to the ground, which is working at more than 20 frames per second on the movement, and we are constantly analyzing what's under the robot. So detecting, positioning, and extracting the weeds. So at the moment we are working for the sport pitches like football and soccer and the others, and we are planning to introduce a robot for the golf very soon. And maybe the next step is the B2C little robots that will go in each garden of our audience. Just to finish, I really think that Hackathon is a really amazing experience, and I wish good luck to all the participants. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Vlad. Okay, so then our final panelist to introduce is Aref. He is the portfolio manager at Startup Bootcamp, one of the largest global accelerators. His work with startups and passion for deep tech solutions led to him founding his own startup, Mithra, which focuses on accelerating the world's transitions to limitless, scalable, and clean fusion energy. So, Aref, tell me a little bit more about your work, both at Startup Bootcamp and your new startup.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and evening. Thank you, Oliviana, for inviting me, and thank you, fellow panelists, for being here. Yes, thank you. My name is Aref. I have been working with Startup Bootcamp as portfolio manager for 3 years. Startup Bootcamp is one of the largest startup accelerator focusing on early stage startups, with more than 23, soon to be 24 countries footprints, from Australia to Mexico, even footprint in Africa that we have, to Middle East, to Singapore, Japan, everywhere. I have been working with Startup Bootcamp for 3 years as a portfolio manager and helping our startup raise capital, find the right corporate partners, and crack the problem if they have on the scale problem, and even helping them to validate the MVP and build up their company. On a personal note, I have been all the time passionate about getting involved with deep technology, and especially the limitless energy of the fusion. So about a year and a half ago, I started getting more involved with the fusion technology and entered an ecosystem. At first, my ambition was just to try to help bring in more private capital in the market, because I was dealing with quite a lot of investors. So starting hosting some of the investor events I could, and I could bring more private angel investors to the market. But after some time passes, I noticed that I could maybe bring my own passion. Maybe I could start my own fusion company. So starting about 2 months ago, I basically co-founded my own company, which are focusing on commercialize fusion and using technology to basically build the nuclear reactor and commercialize the use of it. And by use of that, at the same time, I'm still working with some third-party fusion enthusiasm and some fusion regulators in the United States, such as FIA, which is Fusion Industry Association, to bring more exposure and bring more capital to this market and really build up this industry and turn it from a research-based and laboratory-based industry to an actual scalable industry.
Great. Well, it sounds like everyone is doing some really interesting things. Thank you, Aref, for introducing us a little bit more to what Startup Bootcamp is doing and yourself. So let's dive into the panel. Before I start, I just want to let everyone know in the audience that we would love for you to ask any questions that you want to have the panelists answer. So we have the Q&A open, so be sure to write in your questions and we'll be sure to ask them to the panelists as we go through. But I'll just kick off the questions myself. So have any of you done a hackathon before? So I think 3 of you have. You can unmute yourselves. Maybe we'll start with Vladimir. You have done a hackathon, correct?
Yes. I was doing hackathons before it becomes mainstream. I would say. I mean, I was a very active participant of sport programming as it is the foundation of the hackathon. And yeah, I'm originally from Russia, and there is a big culture of this sport programming. So I felt these emotions hundreds, even if not it's almost 100 times, and in different subjects. Yeah, each time is super exciting, and each time being in a good team, that's super. I'm almost jealous of the participants to to be doing this hackathon.
Okay, great. Also, Camiel, you have not only participated in a hackathon, you've organized one before. So tell me, what was your favorite thing about being in a hackathon?
Because you're quickly iterating through concepts. I really like that, and really try to solve problems that are really cut down to a very small problem that you can solve. Yeah, I've participated in a hackathon, mostly technical, involving drones, where we try to look at how we could develop a drone to save rhinos. That's one. And I organized a hackathon myself, which was called Hack for Good. Yeah, the idea there was to hack against climate change. So the idea behind it was really cool, that you can contribute to, well, organizations that don't have the tools themselves.
Very cool. Wow, it sounds like everyone's done hackathons that are quite similar to the CASSINI one. And Aref, I think you also mentioned that you've done a hackathon. It would also be cool to hear your perspective from Startup Bootcamp. Do you guys go to hackathons, get involved in them as well?
Indeed. I both hosted a hackathon and have an event, not as a format of Startup Bootcamp, but as other organization, but I also participated one too. Especially in Iran, because I'm originally from Iran, we hosted a number of hackathons and participated, but more on technical side. We remember there was one hackathon which focusing on sustainability and more robotic that was a really niche market of really focusing how we could change the recycling side of it, with help some robotic and some technicalities there. That was one that I remember, which the energy of the people there and people just ready to just test out everything was one thing that stepped up in my memories there.
Cool. Yeah, so for everyone who's participated, maybe we'll go around and what was the reason you joined a hackathon, and what came out of it in the end. So I think, Camiel, you already mentioned you did something with rhinos, so maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. So from that, actually a team arose that decided to participate actually in a longer term challenge. I wouldn't call that a hackathon anymore. It's more like a challenge, a year long, where you try to develop a prototype. But well, the concept, I guess, was being produced during the hackathon, and thereafter we actually developed the drone and also the computer vision methods. So the idea was to fly over a big area and then take pictures to recognize humans, vehicles, and animals, so that the ranger could act upon that information.
Wow, sounds quite similar to the protecting rural challenge that hackers will have to go through over the weekend. That's really cool. Aref, why did you join the hackathon?
Mostly I was looking to expand my network, to really meeting some like-minded people who are thinking about the same type of solutions. And that was the main reason, and that's the main things that a lot of people get out of it. The great network of the people which come with some crazy solutions, of crazy way of thinking about the specific solution that they're thinking. And that's the main takeaway, I think, that stays out, and because you still keep in touch with them. And later on, I happened to reach out to some of them in later phase in my life, and we ended up doing some cool things together. So that's the thing that stays with me.
Oh, okay, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I think those that sense of working on a challenge really brings people together. You can always like be able to tap into those people again in the future because you've had that shared experience. Vlad, why did you join a hackathon?
There was no specific reason except of just its drive, its emotions, and I'm convinced that if you cannot find a solution for a problem in 48 hours, it's you're not thinking in a good way. So that's just fun, and that's why I'm participating.
Cool. Great. And so, Martin, you haven't participated in a hackathon, but you've been involved with startup accelerators in the past. And your current startup is obviously benefiting from that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with being a mentor in an accelerator and how that helped you start your own startup?
Yeah, that's a good question indeed, because in the past years I worked together with Startup Bootcamp and Rockstart, where I was a mentor there, and with my management experience and together with this mentoring on Startup Bootcamp and Rockstart, I see how important it is to have different, I call it always the colors in your team. So it's good to have the tech people in, but it's also good to have the more business people in the team. And sometimes they cannot bring something to the table during that 8 hour, a business, let's say a business person. But what I see, if it is a year like Camiel said, or 48 hours, it's very good to have all these colors in your team. And whether that's a hackathon or that's your startup or that's a longer challenge, if you have that combined, and that's what I see now in our team as well, I'm specifically focusing now on, for example, a person who is really I don't know if it's an English word, but a doer. He's really doing things. He's just taking up things, and I call it the red person. And he wants action, always action, and that's really important to have all these different colors in your team, and then you can accelerate faster than the other ones.
Great. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of accelerators see the team is really important, and having that diversity, not just all people, is an important part of that.
Yeah.
I think Aref could probably agree on that. So we do have a question from the audience. Since everyone here has started their own AI startups, what does it take to launch a startup from your experience? What was kind of the starting point for you guys? Who wants to be the first to answer?
Well, shall I start with that?
Sure.
Well, actually, it's not our goal to be an AI startup, but the thing is that when you look really at the problem of the customer, certain problems, you definitely go into the solution of AI. So you really have to see, is AI a solution for the problem of the customer? And then you start with AI. And to answer a little bit the question, what it takes a lot, because sometimes you think you have the right person to solve the AI problem or the machine learning problem, but then you have to, then you see that a particular solution cannot be solved by that person, so you have to find another one to solve that problem. The thing is that I'm not into AI. I don't know how it works. I'm one of the founders, and I combine all the people. The colors, like I just said. But that's what we see. Even if we think we have the right person, sometimes, well, mostly you have to look for another one to solve another problem. And that's really the hard part.
Mm. Well, I think that problem can really help if you're in hackathons to be able to find other people a lot easier. I think that that's definitely one reason why people might want to join a hackathon. Camille, maybe do you want to take a crack at it?
Sure. Well, for me, it kind of I rolled into it from like we were the student initiative and we wanted to continue, so it was naturally a startup. And I just took that as an opportunity. I think the question should be, what does it take to do a startup, and then what is then specific to an AI startup is you run into two problems. One is if you're doing supervised learning, obviously, is data. And the other one is that you need, for the specific problem that you're solving, you need industry experience, either in your team or from your clients, because you're trying to learn an AI, something that is very specific to an industry. I think those two are really important. And if you can scale those two, or figure those out, I think you have a good start. But then you have all the other things in the startup you also have to arrange, like hiring, firing, raising money. But those are the two things that are really involved when you run an AI company, in my experience.
Okay, Aref, you've seen a lot of startups in Startup Bootcamp and have now your own experience. What do you think it takes to launch a startup, in particular an AI one?
Indeed, thanks for the question. I would actually follow up on what Martin and Camiel mentioned, that a lot of times people go straight to the solution without thinking what's the problem. And that's what a lot of problem is. Like they jump in, want to do something with AI, when the solution is way more simple of that, and you could create something with the basic of the marketplace. You don't have to do matchmaking. You don't have to get to the AI solution. So first thing is look at what's the problem you're trying to solve, making sure that whatever you're trying to solve, and then based on that, you could do some customer validation, get to the point which see, is it necessary? It's like we had this concept about 2 years ago start that everybody wants to do a blockchain. Everything you were seeing was on blockchain, but at the end, when you're looking and said, is it necessary to everything become a blockchain company? The answer was not. So everything doesn't have to be an AI company, that everything doesn't have to become that, unless the problems demand the solution, demands some tools that lead toward that. And same thing we see many startups that walk in and they keep claiming there's lots of AI and machine learning behind it. But when you're looking at it, you could say you could cut a lot of costs. You don't have to necessarily do that. AI, it's something that let's just not put it in any pitch deck to make it a tech company, make it something much bigger. Let's value it whatever it is and respect it.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. I think even when we would talk with, from a Rockstar perspective, some of the AI startups, when they're early stage, they hadn't even actually developed the AI algorithms yet, but they knew maybe in the long term that it was what they wanted to do when it actually got to a certain scale. So sometimes I think the technology is the last part of it. So it's always about solving the problem and then seeing what solutions fit. So Vlad, you not only have launched an AI startup, but it also involves a hardware component. How has your experience been with launching that?
Yeah, thanks. I will just finish the previous discussion with because it's very interesting and touched me a lot. I do believe that AI is a tool, so it's not the target. I strongly believe also that we are living a period where, I don't know, if we compare it with 20 years ago when everything started to be web browsed, and that was something unique, and now today's it's everywhere. So I'm convinced that the AI as a tool, as an approach, in much less time will be completely banal, and we will resolve lots of problems with it. That was my point for the previous discussion. And yes, so we in Natuition we are making a distinction between the graphs and the weights on board, so embedded calculations on the robot using NVIDIA solution. NVIDIA jetsons the family solution. And what is very different from us, because even detection of the weed, it's something which exists on the market for, especially for the agriculture scope. But where the others are using super high power, very high cost equipment, we are basing our robot on €100 Jetson Nano component. So we're making very high level calculations on a very low performance hardware and with a camera that costs less than $3. So we are doing some very high technical stuff on some very low price equipment, and that's a big challenge also.
I bet, and I must. Hardware startups are even harder because you require more capital than just being a software-based startup. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can move to what is the data that you guys are using for your startups, and what are the challenges you have with this, with obtaining the data, using the data. I think within a European context, that's always an interesting area to talk about as well because of GDPR and everything. But let's, I'll open the floor to what everyone is doing. Maybe Martin, you want to take a crack at your data?
Yeah, well, we are a satellite-based data company. And if you start, well, we didn't know what we were up to 3 years ago when we said, okay, let's focus on satellite data. And the main challenge for us is to collect the satellite data and to build a database, because for one gas, we collect methane, CO2, NO2, SO2, all these gases, and for 1 year of data of one gas, if we have a use case, we collect 40 terabytes of data. So what our customers ask, they say, yeah, we want to compare year 1 with year 2, so we have to collect two years. So we need to download 80 terabyte of data, and that's the thing. Where that's the challenge we have. So the amount of data. So that's the first thing, and then we needed to build an infrastructure who has a really good performance to show everything on maps, to make decisions, to make graphs in just a split second. And so the amount of data in relation with the infrastructure, that was the main challenge for us. And that's something you have to think about in the first place, because what we see is that we can break down a lot of money on that, because it's costing really much. And the thing is that we are building this on AWS, so because we want that's something maybe to explain good in front, is that we started our company to first to think from a world perspective, from a global perspective, and then we break it down till up to a province or a municipality in the Netherlands. So from world to a continent, then to a country, then to a province, and then to a municipality. And as what we heard is that mostly a lot of startups work the other way around. They started small and then they want to scale up, and that's a good thing. We said, okay, we started big. It cost a lot of money, and break it down, but it cost us some time and some money. But when anywhere on the world they want data from us from a certain gas, yeah, we can scale up very easily. That's what we did. But yeah, that's something that's a strategy you have to think about from the beginning. That was our main challenge.
Okay. Vladimir, what about you? How was it with gathering your data?
Yeah, thanks. We had a problem actually. The vision of our robot is very specific, so it was impossible for us to capitalize on the data that we could find from the others. So we started from this scratch. We started from really from zero, and we made our database ourselves using our robot and just gathering the photos. So we went to hundreds of sport pitches, and we gathered at the moment around 1 million of photos of the grass with or without weeds, and the problematic of artificial intelligence and computer vision in our case is that we are working with very low contrast objects, meaning that you can quite easily today detect a yellow ball on the black background, and we are detecting a green object on a green background. So we need to activate other layers if we're talking about technical and other features of the artificial intelligence to be able to detect our object. And the other problematic that we had is that we needed not only the presence or absence of the weed, but also the position and the position of the root, because our target is to extract. So yes, we have lots of photos. We are also using AWS services for the storage and for the training today. And it's a real full-time job. I mean, that's work to do.
Yeah, I bet. So actually looping back, I see we have a question from the audience for Martin about they thought your example of air pollution from satellite was quite interesting. What is the question and what is the solution that you're solving? Is it unique, insubstantial?
Yeah, thank you for it. Thank you very much. That's a good question. The thing is that what we built with this with the algorithm is a very high resolution and look through the clouds. That's two of the algorithms I mentioned. The other part is that we can predict a certain amount of gases on each spot on the world. So where in the Netherlands we have a lot of ground stations, but they are based mainly around very polluted areas. So a lot of in Amsterdam, a lot of around Rotterdam, or other cities or special places where there's a lot of pollution. What we are able to do is to predict the pollution on certain areas where there's no ground station. So that's one of the USPs. The other one is the resolution. So the Sentinel-5P, I think you mentioned that, Oliviana. Sentinel-5P is where we collect the data from. This is in a resolution of 7 by 5 kilometer. The resolution we have is 100 by 100 meter. So this is something which is a solution for governments who want to do source detection on a certain area. So they want to know what kind of air pollution or nitrogen, special gases. We're talking now about air pollution, which is more a, let's say, you can put some kind of gases under the term air pollution, but we detect the certain gases, so nitrogen oxide or particles, particulate matters, or SO2 or ammonia. And we combine this in a dashboard and we make this accessible. And that's the real challenge for a lot of companies and also governments. What you see with the data which is available, what we see is that a lot of scientists want to predict, for example, the CO2 decrease for the past year. And what they have to do is with a 10 months period of research, they spend 8 months on gathering the data, cleaning the data, getting this on a map, and that's where we help as well. So yeah, for certain problems, we have a solution.
Okay, great. One last question for you, Martin. How do you validate your air pollution maps produced at a lower resolution?
We validate this by the ground stations. So what we the one part is validated by the organizations who launched the satellite. So they validate the data each 3 months. So, and they validate this worldwide by ground stations. And in the Netherlands, we validate this by ground stations of the RIVM, which is the organization in the Netherlands who has really sophisticated measuring stations. And we validate this via them.
Okay, great. Well, we're gonna move on to the other panelists. Thanks so much for the questions from the audience. So there was another question from the audience members. So I'm going to actually put this one over to you, Aref, from the Startup Bootcamp perspective. What job titles, experiences do you want to bring on board for the first 2 hires? So I think that might be quite interesting from what you guys look for when you're selecting early stage startups.
Indeed, thank you. Well, one thing we're really trying to take into consideration when we select a team is the concept of the solo founder. It doesn't really resonate because it's very difficult, especially for the new starters, to do the solo founder team. So it's better to get another co-founder, which is complement you in a certain way, which you're not doing. So if you are making sure you are a very techie person, you get someone who would be able to focus on the business side and the finance side, something which is complementary. For the first hire, it's going to be someone more senior and someone who will be able to scale a business on some area that you may not be able to stand up to the challenge. And as time passes, you are able to bring some other people, which would fill up the gap of organization. Because the moment the organization begins to get shaped, the company begins to scale, you're going to need some people to basically put some of your tasks to, so you could focus on the strategy side of the company. And that's more or less what we are seeing most of the companies which are solo founder or like one founder to move towards.
Perfect. Okay, great. And maybe from a startup perspective, Camiel, you mentioned hiring earlier as one of the challenges as a startup. Maybe you want to give your feedback on what to look for in team members, maybe not so much about their titles, but personality.
Yeah, sure. Well, it really depends on what you already have in your founding team, of course. But I'm a believer of hacker, hustler, hipster. You need those 3 to bring something. And obviously you have multiple theories on that as well. I think when hiring, what we really look at is company culture. Do they fit in our culture? And then thereafter we look into their skills. Yeah, so if it's a technical position, we obviously see whether they can do the things that we expect from them. And if it's a business side position, yeah, we really try to simulate things how they are when we run our company, to really validate whether they fit our company and whether they are up for the job that they're going to do at our company. And in that, culture is a really important one. So if they don't fit our culture, it's definitely a reject for us.
Okay, great. So I think a big topic that's come up, especially when we're talking about starting startups and a hackathon in general, about testing out ideas. How many times have you guys looked at the challenge you're actually solving? How much time did you think about it? Did you change from the first idea you came up with? Yeah, I think that's really a big part about hackathons is the idea area. So I would love to hear your perspectives.
Yeah, shall I tell? Because we did a really big pivot, actually. Well, actually, when I started with EID, I was working at a postal company. We had 1,000 mailmen, and we were asked by a municipality to measure the air quality in their city. So we started with sensors on bicycles. Well, if you know a little bit more about the Netherlands, everyone drives a bicycle. We even have 3 times more bicycles than people, I think. So we started with that, and we started to measure that. And first we thought we start with this, and then we scale it up. And in 1.5 years, we're talking to people, talking to customers, validating our solution. We thought we could solve their problem, but not in a scalable way. So in that period, a great satellite was launched, and then we thought maybe this is our solution, because like I said in the beginning, we worked from out of the problem, and the problem was the air quality in the Netherlands or in big cities all over the world is not good enough for people to live in, and we want to do something to make this better. And when you keep thinking from out of the problem, you do not stick to your first solution, but you see how you can solve that problem. And then we completely pivot. So we now do not work with any sensor at the moment. If a customer asks us for that, we can provide that, and we add that to our product. But actually, we're completely based on satellite data at the moment.
Okay. And maybe Camiel, let's have you actually do a lot of stuff with different clients, so sometimes different challenges come up. How do you guys problem solve?
Yeah, so yeah, we pivoted from a product company to a consultancy company. So we deal with a lot of different types of problems. But what we do, as Martin already said, we really dive into the problem first and really try to validate what is the problem, who is involved, is it actually a problem worth solving for this other company, before we actually start thinking about any solution at all. Obviously, these people, these clients come to us like, yeah, we want AI, but we first, before even writing a proposal, we first validate whether they actually need AI, because it doesn't make sense to use AI for a problem that you don't need it for. It feels like shooting a bazooka at a mouse. It's like putting the heavy guns out for some real easy problem. Yeah, and how often do we? Yeah, we constantly keep on validating the problem, even though it's a proof of concept. After the proof of concept, we look back again. Is this really solving the problem of the customer, or did we learn something new during the process? So it's a constant learning process, in my opinion.
And do you have any top things that kind of make a problem worth using AI, like a criteria?
Well, it's maybe sounds simple, but we just fill in the value proposition canvas, we fill in a business model canvas, and we just iterate those. If the numbers that come out of that are okay, it's a problem worth solving. Obviously, there are assumptions in there, but then you go back once you have done your proof of concept, and see what was you actually validated. Because a company will not invest in AI if that business case is not working for them on the long term.
Aref, you've seen a lot of startups probably pivot in a lot of different ways. What is your take about finding the problem solution fit?
Following up what Camiel said, it's very sounds basic, but keep going back to the business model canvas It's very, very important things, because when you're going back to business model canvas, you're able to see what is the actual value proposition you have, and you begin to fill it in and begin to actually realizing what is the company about, what are the solutions you are offering, what are the channels you're offering, and then you get to the point of realizing that is it necessary to go through that way of the solution, or its complete way of an innovative way would be to go forward. And that's the point which is, I think, extremely important, of making sure that don't fall in love with the solution that you have, and from that point begin to build it up, and you creating a Frankenstein monster. And at the end, you come up to the point that said, was it necessary to make it such a huge thing, or the solution was maybe way more simple, way more narrowed down. So focus on the value proposition you're trying to bring, and then from there you're able to see how far you could go and what are the path you could take to get to the solution from that point.
And Vlad, you mentioned that you mentioned earlier a little bit more about how you came up with your startup idea. Have from that initial concept of what the problem is, has there been any changes from how you wanted to do it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, firstly, I completely agree with all the speakers. Adding just that, for me, either problem solving or product market fit, it's not a task, it's not a period, it's not a task, it's a continuous path. You come back to it X months or years after you launch a project. And especially because being a founder today is swimming in this pool of incertitudes, taking assumptions each day, good and bad, that's the biggest challenge. And for concerning my startup, we initially started with a B2C product for the private gardens, and pivoting a lot, we came to the B2B model, which is more acceptable for us, for a company of 9 people. So that's where we are. But we spent almost 1 year of finding our market niche to start on. So yeah, that's a big work at the beginning of each project.
Yeah, and so going from B2C to B2B, it looks like everyone actually on the panel works more on a B2B or B2G segment. Vlad, what's your experience with working with government and corporates to actually solve these problems as an early stage startup?
Well, firstly, in B2B and in B2G, we are facing people, so they are human, so there is no problem of communicating. We have some success on Netherlands with B2B and B2G market, especially the city of Amsterdam, which is one of our 3 pilots. And at the moment, we have one of our robots, which is maintaining the fields of the southwest sport complex of Amsterdam. So there is a specific way of working with B2G, with all the administrative process, nothing to be especially scared about, and neither for B2B. Just need to keep in mind that people in B2B sector, they have their desires, but also their objectives and the goals of the company. So there is nothing to be scared either.
Okay, great. Camille, you work with a lot of corporates at the moment to get an understanding of their problems. How is it working with your clients? Any tips for hackers on how to really look at the validation stages?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's really important to understand the decision-making unit of the corporate or of the company that you're talking to. So to who am I talking? Am I talking to the problem owner or the user buyer, as they call it? Am I talking to the financial buyer? Am I talking to the technical buyer? And not every company, big or small, these people are involved. Sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's multiple persons. but understanding that dynamic is really important, because then before you talk to someone, you know what kind of questions you should ask him or her. And I think that is I think from that perspective that's really important. Next to that, I think most companies or big companies have processes in place for working with other companies. So also try to understand those, because then you know also their roadmap, their speed, um, and you know what to expect in that sense. And I think in general, and I think Vladimir said it as well, they're all just people with desires as well. I think building a good connection with them is very, very important in that sense as well. So yeah, I think these are some of the tips that I can give.
Okay, great. We're coming up towards the end of the hour. So I'll just let everyone maybe share your top 3 advice for our hackers for the upcoming weekend, whether it be about team, product, tech, AI. Shall we start with you, Vlad?
Well, I have one that came in head directly. Please sleep. Because from my personal experience, the best ideas I had were at the morning after a good sleep. So just do that. It's very important, and you're even maybe don't realize it, but you're more performant while you're sleeping than while you're just working. Please have fun. That's the crucial. Yeah, together we will make a world better.
Great. Aref, do you want to give your top 3 advice for the hackers?
Well, sleep, I mean, number 1, number 2, number 3. But the number 1 advice I would give, that don't fall in love with the solution that you are offering, because not all the time that's the best solution, and not all the time that's the solution. Keep working on it to making sure that you could nurture it down to what is going to be scalable, or if it's going to be that. And after that, you are able to find a repeatable and scalable business model. That's number 1. Number 2, maybe on team, hire slow, but fire fast. That's one thing, learned it in a hard way, that it takes your time to find a person that would be a good culture fit, making sure finding someone that would be able to achieve some KPI that you have in a company. But the moment get to the point that you know that it's not going to work out, fire fast. And number 3, put the dot in the horizon and be focus on what you're going to do and what you're going to achieve. And it's okay to sometimes fall behind, and failure is an option, but doesn't mean you have to stay in that dilemma. You could all the time move forward and pass through it.
Great. Martin, do you want to take a crack at your top 3 advice for hackers this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the thing like Vlad said, fun. That's really a good thing, and that's for hackathon, but that's always within your team. That's one of the main things which I keep in mind. But also learn in these 48 hours. You can learn a lot from other people and set yourself open for that. So make sure you talk to people, you learn from other people, and see how they solve the problem. And the thing is, which is connected to what Aref said, don't fall in love with your solution, but also follow up and try to find really a solution for the problem. So accept that you have to pivot afterwards. If you proceed with it after the hackathon, accept that you have to change and that you pivot, and then you really find a solution for a customer.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. And finally, Camiel, what would your top advice be for the hackers?
Well, I think I can't top all these great advices of the other panelists. There is not anything I can add apart from also eat well. Just think of your health, because as long as yourself healthy, you can do the things that you want. Yeah, maybe then a little bit in the AI perspective, maybe try to look around for data sets that are already around that you could use for your solution. Obviously, after you validated whether you are actually solving a problem, as the previous two panelists said. I think those are my my tips.
Okay, so to conclude, sleep. Don't fall in love with a solution. Think about that problem. I think those are the main takeaways. And I'd also like to say, take advantage of the network that is there. Other hackers, the mentors. These are resources that struggle to find on their own. So that's the beauty of a hackathon. You not only have the experts available from EscherCloud's CASSINI Hackathon Netherlands, but the European Commission is providing their experts over the weekend. So if you want to really understand a problem, this is the time to do it. Okay, so that concludes our panel discussion for tonight. I want to thank all the panelists. I really am so happy to have had you guys. Really great insights, and really looking forward to seeing you guys in the future, maybe in person soon.